Det kan lyde på betegnelsen teknologiforståelse, som om at det først og fremmest handler om teknologi. Det gør det i virkeligheden ikke. Det handler om teknologiens principper og nogle af de arbejdsformer og udtryksformer, som knytter sig til at arbejde med at skabe teknologi. Men det handler altså ikke om at blive 100-metermester i den eller den konkrete teknologi.
Det, der er rigtig vigtigt, det er, at folkeskoleelever de forstår det, der sker, når man digitaliserer samfundet. Det har stor betydning for den måde, vi lever vores liv på. Det har stor betydning for den måde, som vi skal arbejde på i fremtiden. Og det har rigtig stor betydning for den måde, vi har fællesskaber og samfund på. Der er 4 kompetenceområder inden for faget teknologiforståelse. Der er computational tankegang, der handler om, hvordan man modellerer verden, omsætter problemer ud fra den virkelige verden til noget, der kan behandles computationelt. Der er teknologisk handleevne, som handler om, hvordan og hvorledes at computer i det hele taget virker, hvordan hvorledes vi kan sende noget over afstand, eller hvordan internettet er bygget op af digital design og designprocesser. Og det handler om, hvordan vi skaber teknologi, så den kan være meningsfyldt for andre mennesker at bruge. Og endelig så er der digital myndiggørelse. Det handler om, hvordan at andre har designet til os, og dermed indlejret intentionalitet ind i produkterne, sådan at vi kan bruge dem enten som vi gerne vil, eller som producenterne ønsker, at vi skal bruge dem.
Vi går meget i skole for at lære at reproducere. Det er ikke tilstrækkeligt i den tid, vi lever i. Vi skal have det kreative, skabende element med. Det skal lærerne glæde sig til i det her fag, at der er så meget rum til kreativitet og rigt udtryk, som samtidig giver indsigt og læring, først og fremmest i forhold til den faglighed, som det her handler om, men som også kan smitte af på andre fag.
Jeg tror i virkeligheden, at teknologiforståelse det er noget, vi vil opleve, der kommer til at gennemsyre hele vores uddannelsessystem, hvor man bliver nødt til at forholde sig til, hvordan data og datalogien udfordrer det enkelte fagfelt. Så det bliver enormt spændende at følge, hvordan vi i Danmark kan tage hånd om det her og gøre det til noget, der gør, at vi kan blive endnu bedre til at bygge fællesskaber og samfund, som vi har lyst til at leve i, gennem det at forstå os på digital teknologi.
Altså den her teknologiforståelse, den gør jo, at de lige pludselig har magten selv til at skabe. Det vil sige, at de kan skabe noget helt nyt, men de kan også gå ind og være medskaber eller reskabe et allerede eksisterende produkt. Så det vil sige, når de nu på et eller andet tidspunkt finder ud af, at Google vil noget helt særligt med dem, når de er på Google, jamen, så kan det godt være, at de laver en anden søgemaskine, som ikke vil noget helt særligt med dem. Så altså, jeg tænker, at den her magt, de får over det digitale, den er alfa og omega for, at de kan begå sig i et demokratisk samfund. Altså, det er helt essentielt.
Hello everybody, I am Michael Caspersen and I am here to present the Danish model for informatics in general education. Thank you very much for inviting me to talk at your General Assembly. It is an honor and a privilege. A little bit about myself. I have a background in informatics with informatics education as my research area. For 7 years I was, this may also be of interest to you, I was the director of Center for Science Education at Aarhus University, where we work to improve science education at all educational levels, from cradle to grave, you might say. Since 2017, I am Executive Director of IT West Networking Universities, which is an organization promoting informatics education and research at the 3 universities in Western Denmark. A 2-tier model for informatics in general education is one of our strategic focus areas. A 2-tier model which we promote at all educational levels, even at university. I will speak mostly about primary, lower secondary and upper secondary school level today. Since 2008, I have worked and been involved in development of informatics as a subject relevant to all in general education, first at the upper secondary level, and since 2016, also at primary and lower secondary level. where I have, among other things, co-chaired the group developing the trial subject you are about to hear about today. I'm also involved in the European Informatics for All Coalition as a founding member of the coalition and as chair of the group, currently working on developing a common European informatics curriculum framework for school. I will now share with you my presentation. There we are. So here we go. The outline of my talk is as follows. I will start with a brief introduction on the vision and objectives of informatics in general education. Then I will present the structure of the Danish informatics curriculum. And following that, I will briefly describe how a number of trial projects have played a central role in the process. I will share some lessons learned from the just finished trial project in primary and lower secondary school, the outcome of which is highly encouraging. Towards the end, I will indicate the next steps we are expecting and certainly hoping for. And I will close with the references to resources you might be interested in pursuing for further information and inspiration. But let us first consider the why, that is the vision and objectives for informatics in general education. We consider informatics to be a fundamental discipline for the 21st century. And by fundamental, I mean a discipline that, like language and math, is important to excel in all other subjects. Thus, we envisage the future educational landscape to look something like this, with language, informatics, and mathematics as the fundamental subjects for school. And all of these are here I have highlighted informatics as the background for learning all other subjects. This may seem as a bold vision, but it is far from new. The first Danish professor in computing, or datalogi as he named it, and Turing laureate Peter Nauer presented this vision 55 years ago in a series of radio lectures on the Danish Broadcasting Corporation, where he put it like this. And mind you, this was in 1966. To conceive the proper place of datalogi in the curriculum, it is natural to compare with subjects of similar character. One will then realize that languages and mathematics are the closest analogies. Common for the three is also their character as tools for many other subjects. Now, this has also been realized by the European Commission. The second version of the Digital Education Action Plan for 2021 to 2027 was published, I think, exactly a year ago today, and only 2 years after publication of the first version. Among other things, the new plan expresses the need for a focus on an inclusive, high-quality computing education or informatics at all levels of education. To follow up, the European Informatics for All Coalition have suggested to collaborate with the EU Commission on development of an official informatics competence framework, complementary to the digital skills competence framework on user skills. So indeed, informatics must have a prominent place in the modern school curriculum, and for many reasons. You see, IT is not just another technology. All other technologies stretch our physical abilities, but information technology stretches our cognitive abilities and enables us to partially or completely automate complex cognitive processes in all aspects of life. In principle, anything we can think may potentially be represented computationally. and we are not even close comprehending the opportunities and risks this implies. This is a radical novelty, as the Dutch computing scientists Edgar Wiebe Dijkstra said more than 30 years ago. It is also much more than Industry 4.0. I think it is appropriate to talk about the computational revolution and to position it alongside the revolution of the printing press and the Industrial Revolution. After some 100 years or more, the printing press gave rise to reading and writing becoming a skill all people should learn. That too was a radical novelty, and it dramatically advanced humankind's cultural ability. The Industrial Revolution drove the development of modern math, natural science, and vice versa, of course, and it dramatically advanced humankind's physical ability and welfare. The computational revolution, which had its origin almost 180 years ago in the beginning of the Victorian era, and which our society is now finally beginning to realize, drives development of informatics and computational methods with huge implications for all aspects of society and indeed all other modern technologies. Now let me focus on the structure of the Danish curriculum, which is our current response to this challenge of including informatics as an ambitious and inclusive topic at all levels of education. But let us for a moment go 13 years back in time to 2008. Apparently, there was something special in the air that year, and not only in Denmark. In many countries around the world, 2008 marked the renaissance of computing in high school. It's not that computing wasn't present in high school. In Denmark, we have had it in high school since around 1971, but there was a renaissance, you could say, for computing in high school taking place around 2008. In Denmark, a group was formed by the Ministry of Education, and in early November 2008, work was initiated which led to a modern informatics subject appearing in high schools as a trial subject in 2011 and as a permanent subject since 2016. Similar development took place in many other countries. 3 other examples are mentioned here and with references to papers on the 4 mentioned initiatives. A recurring theme and quest in all of these initiatives and what I called the renaissance of informatics in high school was to design a modern, relevant and attractive informatics subject, attractive for all. Instead of looking inward by diving deeply into more or less arbitrary idiosyncrasies of, say, programming technologies or what have you, the common goal was to develop a curriculum that opened to the world by pinpointing the broad and deep relevance of informatics to individuals and societies. Here is an outline of the 2009 Danish curriculum for informatics in high school. One of the 6 core topic areas was use and impact of IT on human activity. The purpose of this competence area was that students should understand that digital artifacts and their design has a profound impact on people, organizations, and social systems. Design of a system is not just design of the digital artifact and its interface, it's also design of the use and workflow that unfolds around the artifact. The purpose of this is that students understand the interplay between the design of a digital artifact and the behavioral patterns that intentionally or unintentionally unfolds. And please note that this was included in our high school curriculum when it was designed in 2019, before anyone talked about social media and before Facebook had really caught on. Now let's focus on the structure of the more novel curriculum for the primary and lower secondary level. The Danish informatics curriculum for primary and lower secondary school consists of 4 competence areas. You heard about them in the introductory video, but let me repeat them here. So it's digital empowerment, digital design and design processes, computational thinking and modeling, and technological knowledge and skills. Digital empowerment provides critical skills to analyze how others have designed for us, and thus embedded intentionality in digital artifacts so we can use them as we want to, or as the producers want us to use them. This competence area is for digital artifacts what literature analysis is for novels, but with the additional liberating component of reframing and redesign, realizing that digital artifacts are human-made and could have been designed differently if other perspectives had been applied. Digital design and design processes is about how to create technology which is meaningful for people to use. Computational thinking and modeling is about how to model aspects of the world, how to map real-life situations to representations which can be processed computationally. There's a lot of challenges involved in that representation task or process. Technological knowledge and skills is about how computers actually work, how the internet works, and how to deal with the safety and security aspects. And last but certainly not least, how to program computers. The 4 competence areas constitute a holistic approach to informatics, which I will describe in terms of this model of computational modeling, if you like. The real or an imaginary world is populated with phenomena and activities, which through analysis and abstraction can be understood in terms of concepts and use cases. Through computational modeling, these can be prioritized, structured, and modeled for computational representation. And through design and construction using digital technology, new digital artifacts can be developed to manipulate and transform these representations into something which hopefully provides value through interpretation and use back in the real world. The 4 competence areas maps more or less one-to-one to the 4 processes in this model. Digital design and design processes covers primarily activities related to the problem domain, and thus the human perspective of computing or informatics. Computational thinking and modeling maps to the process going from problem domain to the computational model system, from the human perspective to the technical perspective. Technological knowledge and skills provide competences to design and construct digital artifacts. Excuse me. And digital empowerment relates to the process back from the computational model system to the problem domain, from the technical perspective to the human perspective. Analytical competences provided by digital empowerment will strengthen the 3 other competence areas, and vice versa. If you actually know how to build digital artifacts, your critical and constructive analysis can become much richer and much deeper. The new subjects for upper secondary school and later for primary and lower secondary school have both been offered as trial subjects for a period. The new informatics subject for high school was developed in 2009 to 2010 and offered as a trial subject for 6 years until it became permanent with a major reform of upper secondary education in Denmark in 2016. After the subject was made permanent, several projects began to explore the use of informatics in other subjects. That is, to use informatics for disciplinary renewal. Excuse me, and let me pause a little bit on that aspect of informatics, the use in other disciplines or other subjects in school. Quite a few projects have explored this opportunity, and it is very promising. In particular, I encourage you to watch the video accessible by clicking on the image on the bottom right to get an idea of how computational literacy may be a driver for disciplinary renewal. And if we step back a little bit and think about the computational revolution and the computational expressions that we can enable students to embrace or pupils in school to embrace, We can think of this as a new language, as a new cultural technique, you might say. In addition to spoken language and written language and mathematical language, we can also talk about the computational language. And every time it's not so often it happens, but these languages have different qualities. And here is a description of the quality of the mathematical language compared to natural language. And I will exemplify this with this Gruk by Danish poet and scientist Piet Hein. It is indeed too odd for words that halves 3/4 of 2/3. It's not easy to parse and understand what is expressed in this little Gruk here, but if we express it mathematically, it's quite simple to express and also to parse and understand what is being asserted here. It's also, if you have the basic mathematical training, easy to verify whether this is true or false. So mathematical language obviously has some very strong qualities, particular qualities compared to natural language. Similarly, with computational language compared to mathematical language. Here is an example of wave modeling. And on the right, there is an excerpt from a 40-page document which a high school teacher in physics in Denmark found at an American university's homepage. It describes the mathematics of waves, of modeling waves, and it's very complicated mathematics, the stochastic methods and a couple of differential equations and lots of other good stuff, as it's said. It's really inaccessible to most people. If you want to model waves, however, you can use computational language, and all it takes compared to the mathematical equipment that is needed for the mathematical modeling, all it takes to create a computational model is the ability to add two numbers and divide by 2. Because if you look at each of the particles in a wave, they do not move horizontally, but only vertically. So the x coordinate is constant, and the y coordinate of a particle just tries to keep pace with its neighbors. So if you know where the two neighbors are, you can also calculate where you want to be as a particle in the next time frame. So this way of modeling from a local perspective, the behavior of agents, as it is called, in a complex dynamic system, enables a much simpler description of behavior of the agents, and which can lead to very simple and easily accessible computational models of complex dynamic systems, and here exemplified by wave modeling. In fact, the physics teacher from high school in Denmark had found this description on an American university's homepage, and he also found a description of how to implement that complicated mathematics in Python, a programming language, and he actually made it work. But of course, it wasn't accessible at all to the students. But this simple decentral model, computational model, if you like, based on what we call agent-based modeling, is simple and accessible even to kids in, I would say, 6th grade or something like that. And this means that kids in school can start working with understanding the nature of waves. They can work to understand various aspects of waves, like frequency, amplitude, interference, and plasticity of materials, and so forth. Mitch Resnick, which is a professor at MIT, in the lifelong kindergarten group, has put it this way, that as we learn to read and read to learn, we should also learn to code and code to learn. So this is the two-tier strategy for informatics in school, as you might say. And here, via those two images, there are links to videos with Mitch Resnick and Natalie Rusk, where they present their vision of computational literacy and coding as a new way for people to share ideas with the world, an extended form of writing, or a fourth language, if you like. Many of these ideas were formulated by Andrew DeSessa in his inspiring book from 2000, Changing Minds, Computers, Learning and Literacy. If you're really interested in these things, I encourage you to have a look at some of these resources. Anyway, let's go back to the trail and the trial projects that we have had in school in Denmark. We talked about high school as a subject and in subjects, exploring via various projects the opportunities of using informatics in other subjects. Now let's focus on primary and lower secondary school, and the trial subject for informatics, we call it in the trial period, at least in Denmark, technology comprehension. The subject was developed in 2018, and since early 2019, it has run on trial in 46 schools across the country for 2.5 years. The trial period ended this summer, and the final evaluation is just about to be published. Following that, we await the political decision about the future of the subject in the Danish school system. So, what have we learned from the trial period, which, mind you, has been conducted without prior education or training or anything of neither teachers nor teachers involved in the project? Today, I can share with you some rumors about the soon-to-be published final evaluation of the project. There are many nice things to be said. You can read this for yourself. But what I find particularly rewarding is that no gender differences has been recognized. The curriculum truly appeals to all pupils in school. But also that people, and all people, teachers, leaders, consultants, pupils, of course, and teachers and so forth, involved in the trial project see a huge potential for the two-tier model and the opportunity to use informatics as a driver for renewal of other disciplines. So what are the next steps we are expecting? Well, initially, we have some urgent initiatives. As I have already mentioned, we are all awaiting the political decision about the future of informatics and general education in Denmark. Once it hopefully becomes mandatory in primary and lower secondary school, we expect it also to become mandatory in all upper secondary schools. Developing a radically new subject for school, a subject that is not already well established as a mandatory subject in upper secondary school, has never been done before. Not in Denmark, and probably nowhere else in the world. To succeed, funding is needed. Private foundations are ready to contribute substantial amounts but a political decision and public funding is necessary to establish democratic legitimacy for the foundations to step in. And for almost 2 years, the road has been paved for establishing a National Center for Informatics Education, a center responsible for competence and capacity building high in the supply chain and to facilitate implementation through qualified scaffolding with phased guidance. We estimate an implementation period of about 10 years. The estimated cost of implementation is roughly 1 billion Danish kroner, the equivalent of around 130 million euros. The ultimate goal is a two-tier approach all the way up through the educational system, with informatics as a discrete subject and used in all of the subjects for disciplinary renewal. We work on this also at the university level, both in research and education. So here are a few resources available in English about the Danish model for informatics in general education. There are, you already saw one, there are 5 official videos on the trial subject. There is a paper on the rationale and design of the informatics curriculum for upper secondary school. This paper dates back from 2013. There's also a vision paper and a video, which I already mentioned, on the potential of using informatics as a driver for renewal of other subjects. The vision paper is from 2014 and the video is from last year. And finally, there is a brand new chapter on the Danish model for informatics and general education. This chapter is one of 46 chapters in the book Perspectives on Digital Humanism, which is freely available online and which will be published by Springer later this fall as a physical book. You know, these old-time things we used to have on the shelves. I would also like to mention two notable Norwegian initiatives. Today and tomorrow I attend as member of the advisory board the kick-off meeting of the Mascot project, which runs for the next 3 years. This will probably be of interest to many of you. It's about mathematics, science, and computational thinking. So integrating informatics in the sciences and informatics, you might say. And as a final pointer, I must mention also the Center for Computing in Science Education at Oslo University. Here I provide a link to a talk by Professor and Director Anders Malte Sørensen, and I encourage you to watch the video. It is highly compelling. Thank you for your attention.